Okay, and we're live. Thank you all for taking some time out of this summer Wednesday evening to come and learn with me about social media from an Orthodox perspective. My name is Cooper Buss. Why should you listen to me on this topic? Well, I am a father and a parent. Justin, my only child, Declan, is now 4 months old, so not a ton of experience in the parenthood realm. I think I have a unique viewpoint for technology, social media, from an Orthodox perspective. I'm through 1 year of a Master's of Theology program, and I'm basically old enough to remember a time when social media and cell phones and internet-enabled devices didn't exist, but young enough to still feel their tug on every part of my life. I also am a digital marketing expert. I worked for many, many years in the digital marketing field, using these very platforms that we will discuss tonight to try to affect people's behavior and decision-making. So I kind of have like a behind the stage view of a lot of these social media platforms, and I want to give you part of what we'll do today, at least, is I'll give you some kind of insight into actually like the structure of these social media platforms. Because one of the prevalent media theories is that the major impact of a social media is not necessarily its content, but actually its format and structure. That's the biggest impact that it has on people that use it. So without further ado, let's begin. We're going to start off with some kind of high-level theory stuff. Here's a quote. "Today, our society has reached another tipping point to rewire the way people spread and consume information. The power to share will help us to transform many of our core institutions and industries." To me, those are somewhat ominous words. They're spoken by Mark Zuckerberg in 2012 upon the eve of Facebook's initial public offering, when the company went public and Mark Zuckerberg became a billionaire. These are interesting words. Mark Zuckerberg is a smart man, founder of social media, perhaps. He understands it. And notice how he describes it. I thought social media was about connecting to the people we care about and sharing our lives with each other. But I challenge you throughout this presentation, think about the way you use social media and think about whether you really go on social media to connect with other people, or are you actually on social media doing something quite different. So let's begin by talking about social media in general. You probably have not, unless you attended the live session from a few weeks ago that I led on technology from an Orthodox perspective. But one of my hypotheses that I shared was that technology, especially internet-connected devices with screens, that's the most effective technology that affects our psyche and our mindset, just minute to minute. That type of technology functions like alcohol. It can be addictive. It affects our moods. It is ubiquitous in our society, and it can be really, really good. We use alcohol in many important cultural, societal expressions. We enjoy it at fine wine in restaurants, and we even use it in our Eucharist. The very Eucharist itself is alcohol, blood of Christ. But in the same way, technology has the capacity to really mess with our lives, our families, and our society. So keep that in mind. Technology, think about it a little bit more like alcohol. And I think that helps you to understand why I believe that social media, we have to view it in a very different way than we view perhaps just a tool that exists to help us to connect. Social media is designed to be addictive. It is the business model of a social media company. It is how they make their money. They have optimized an app on your phone or on your computer to capture as much of your attention as possible. Literally, they measure it and they optimize function of the application to keep your attention. It's for profit. They make money through advertising. They make money by influencing your behavior. Let's just look at some of the terminology used. I think this is just fascinating to look at the terminology that people openly and knowingly use to describe aspects of social media. when we go on social media, we are fed via a newsfeed content based on what an algorithm believes will keep our attention on our device. And that results in an increased ad revenue for the platform. We describe the best top performing content as viral, technically defined as having the attributes of an infectious agent that multiplies in organic cells. Pretty dark concepts when you look at the truth of the words that are being used to describe how we engage with social media, and when social media is at its most effective in virality. So I said before, it seems like social media exists to help keep us connected. That at least is to some degree how it often is marketed. That's what they propose. Originally, social media was created to help us connect to each other better and share more. Mark Zuckerberg used the word share there. But I believe that's essentially a bait and switch. Maybe that was an old understanding of social media, but the monetization model is completely different now. When I analyze my behavior on any social media platform, I'm not really there to connect. I'm very rarely there, because it's not a business that's actually structurally designed for connection anymore. It's designed for entertainment. So I think we have to rethink, restructure the way we understand social media. Not a tool, it's not an app, it's not for connection, it is for entertainment. And when we think about social media as entertainment, we can put it into the right place in our lives, right? It's the same as watching a movie, going on Netflix, or going to the movie theater or whatever it is. It's entertainment. It's a luxury way to spend our time. And essentially that's just a way to kill time too, killing it. Treat social media the same way you treat TV and video games. It's addictive the same way. We essentially use it to just pass our time. So that's a mind shift, thinking about social media as entertainment. Now let's move on from that high level theory. I want to just give you some practical strategies. Some of these are tested by people I know. I've talked to other parents and my parents. I have 5 younger brothers that I, as a young adult, have seen grow up and watch my parents parent them. So I have some kind of like intimate exposure to parenting in action for young people. So we want to protect our kids online. We want to protect them from viewing things that will harm them, mostly psychologically and spiritually, and also protect them from having interactions that could harm them in the same way, but also potentially lead to something else more dangerous. And really quickly, I find whenever I talk to parents about protecting their kids online, social media, we pretty quickly jump to the concepts of control. How do you control their access? How do you put parental controls in place? Turning their internet access on and off, Wi-Fi router, things like that. Getting your child's login so you can log in and then check what they're doing. Those methods exist. I'm not going to share them with you. There's some inherent problems with those because technology changes so quickly. Your methods have to change really quickly. Also, you can find guides on how to do that by just Google searching parental control plus the name of whatever platform it is. And you'll get the official guide from the platform itself on how to help your kids or set up, the parent account. Or better yet, just go ask the AI chatbot for advice on how to help your kids online. And you can revel in that irony of having a computer help you parent. Instead, today, I want to focus on some more what I believe are holistic strategies that are rooted in my understanding of the actual structure and function of social media and my understanding of the Orthodox life. So first, let's just look at harmful content. I hate to break it to you, but I don't believe that parental controls really work. And I think this might be a hard truth for some of us to understand because we want to jump to control, to control our kids, to protect them. But here's the deal. If your kid has a device that's accessing the internet, it is almost impossible to consistently keep them from viewing things that they aren't supposed to view if they want to. It is easy to circumvent. Any internet browser has a million ways to access inappropriate, harmful content. So there's one reason that parental controls are helpful. It can prevent accidents. It can prevent your kids from stumbling upon something that will make them uncomfortable or that's inappropriate. But if your kid really wants to get around it, they're going to get around it anyways. So I believe we have to take a very different approach here. And here's some of the strategies that I would suggest. Take these or leave these. Think about how they could potentially help you and your family to set better boundaries and help your kids be safer when they're using social media. So the first one, there are kid-friendly social medias out there. YouTube for Kids is a good example of that, where it's only kid approved, absolutely no inappropriate content whatsoever. The only way to really make a social media appropriate for children is to stop making it social, because the second it's social, you get exposed to whatever anybody wants to say, which cannot properly and typically be controlled. So the freedom is what makes it inappropriate. So YouTube Kids, it's not just like anybody can upload a video there. It's curated content for children. There are apps that will allow your kids to access entertainment safely. An interesting thing is that almost every social media application says you have to be at least 13 to use it, which I think is an interesting number that the industry has landed on. It's kind of old. I suspect a lot of kids younger than 13 are actually using social media, but I know as a 13-year-old, like you don't have the best discernment when you're using technology, that's for sure. Next idea is teaching your kids about some accountability. If your kids are younger, you can just reinforce to them like, hey, I will buy you a device or allow you to have a device, or I'll pay for your phone plan or whatever it is. But there's some expectations around how they use it. For them to have a phone or a tablet or whatever, they should expect that that they need to be accountable for how they use it, which means you're going to sometimes look at their device, see what their search history says, see what is in their newsfeed, which is a reflection of what they're interested in. So you can perform audits essentially to see what your kids are up to, and just teach them that accountability is part of using technology as a child. There's a concept of like reviewing the privacy and the parental control and the safety settings with your kids too, and see what they think they should be set to, like what kind of content should they be allowed to view. So if they can view their buy-in, then they'll support it better in the future and not want to go around it as much. One strategy that my family does use is attempting to restrict the areas in their house where technology can be used. I think like there's probably no circumstance in which a child should be alone with a tablet or a computer. I think that it's just too dangerous, frankly. But if your kids are only using their tablets or computers on like maybe the main floor of your house or with an easy eye or earshot from a parent, that just enforces some accountability on their use and extra visibility too. Curating the apps that your children use is pretty important too. Like if your kid has the ability to install software or apps on your devices at their whim, that's pretty dangerous, because that will allow them to get around any parental control or get into any new situation that they aren't familiar with pretty quickly. So I suggest don't allow your kids to have the ability to download apps at will. You can Google search just like how to restrict app downloads on Apple, how to restrict app downloads on Android. When I post this on the St. Mary's Greek Orthodox Church website, I'll have links to those guides in there. I think that is a useful like technology guide to have. Curate the apps. You can easily see what apps your kid has on their device. You just open up and scroll through it in like 2 seconds. Pretty easy to do. And then the last thing, and this is just like in general, if social media and technology is, if it's addictive, then one of the best weapons we have against it is just confession. Openly and honestly reviewing your relationship with things in your life that aren't healthy and are affecting you, and then talking to your priest about that. Encouraging your kids to regularly attend confession and be open and honest about what's making them feel uneasy or what's troubling them, or what's making them feel bad. Let's go on and talk a little bit about some ways to protect your children from having harmful interactions online. So there's the content, but then there's also like real people that are present too. That's the social part of the social media. So I'm going to tell you a few things I think you can use to help keep your kids safe from interacting with weird people online, essentially. Number one, teach your kids ground rules. You should have probably rules about who your kids can connect with on social media. I would say if they aren't the same age as your kid or like an immediate family member, probably shouldn't be a social media connection. Teach your kids those ground rules. I think it's even like I think there's a little strategy around teaching your kids that it's actually kind of like cool or it makes sense to uphold your values by like denying friend requests from people. It seems mean, so we don't like to do it. But it actually is a really good example of like, no, that's not what I'm on here for. I'm not on here to be followed by some kid in my grade at school that I don't even know. I suggest every parent, if your kid is on a social media, get on that social media and connect with your kid. A lot of ways just by connecting with them, friending them, whatever the name of the relationship is on the app. That a lot of times that will allow you to see what they're posting. It'll allow you to see their friends list on most platforms as well. So it'll be easy to just kind of keep an eye on them online. Plus, then you are getting some of your own experience in that same app. You're going to get, the friend requests from people you don't know. You're going to see the weird content. So you'll be able to help your kids, because you'll have the actual experience in the platform itself. Auditing, I mentioned auditing their friends list, auditing their news feed. That's something just, you could do that once a month, bribe them for all I care, that might take a bribe. I'll give you $5 to spend on the app store or whatever it is. If I can quick look at your device and make sure you're safe. Yeah, I think that's pretty useful. Here's my conclusion about all that. Some of this will help. Some of those strategies will help. Some of them have worked in my life. I've seen my parents do them effectively with my little brothers. But at the end of the day, I don't believe any of those things are going to actually solve the root problem. And one of the challenges of technology is that it does evolve so quickly because it's driven by capitalism and the economy and profits. It always will outpace our ability to use it properly. And so even if you get really on top of the social media, every year, every social media platform rolls out new features that changes the way they function. So I believe what it really comes down to is discernment. At the end of every day, we've made many decisions in our lives where we've had to choose between what will bring us closer to God and what won't. We need to train ourselves in discernment. We need to pray for it. We need to practice it. But if kids want to view harmful content, they'll find a way to. You have to teach them discernment. We have to teach ourselves discernment. It's a spiritual practice, and it has to have its root in our Orthodox faith. Here are some of my ideas about how you can develop discernment with your kids and for yourself, of course. That's the beauty of the children's sermon at church. It's as much for the parents as it is for the kids. That's how I always feel about it. It always hits me, that's for sure. So here's some things. Pray together with your children about discernment. Just teach them what it is. Discernment, choosing right and wrong, choosing what will be helpful, what will bring you closer to God and what won't. Our digital lives are only become more and more complex. We've got more devices in our homes that are accessing the internet and pushing information to us in more ways. We've got the AI revolution happening right now. Who knows what many ways that'll affect all kinds of aspects of our lives. But if you see it as a spiritual situation, and you pray with your children about their time, technology, about their time on social media, pray that they'd be protected, pray that they would have discernment, pray that they would know when they see something that makes them uncomfortable, that they would talk about it, bring it up with you or in confession. Bring God into the middle of the challenge. I think that's the only weapon we really have at the end of the day. Power of the Holy Spirit acting in our children. I think you can set a good example by teaching your children about discernment. like an example of that would be, you're on the same social media. My recommendation, you should be on the social media that your kids are on too. Talk about it. Talk about like, oh man, Facebook is calling me in again. Well, your kids probably don't use Facebook, but like, man, TikTok, it got me scrolling again. I wasted so much time on there. Like, let your kids know about your actual experiences with social media too. Let them hear you discerning, like, ooh, that's weird. I don't like that. I'm gonna like, click the dots and say, don't show me that anymore. Teach my app that I don't want that kind of content. That's a strategy. There's probably an opportunity to quiz your kids. I don't know, this might be too like, too kind of arrogant sounding to them, but you could give them situations every once in a while, like, hey, I know you use Snapchat a lot. What happens when like some weirdo requests a connection with you, someone you don't know? What do you do? What do you do about it? Talk to them about why they don't get to watch R-rated movies when they're young. What would you do if you were doing research for your homework and something popped up that made you feel uncomfortable? What would you do? Would you exit out? Would you run and scream? Hopefully you come to me as a parent. I already mentioned this. I'm just hitting it again because I think it's probably the most important thing I'll say tonight. I think if your kids are on social media, get on there to experience the social and the spiritual temptation. Experience the pressure for yourself so you really know what it's like to be on these same platforms as your kids. I think that's a real danger as technology evolves. We get older, we're more resistant to change. So we don't get on the same apps as our kids. So they have a different experience that we can never understand because we haven't had it ourselves. Talked about this age of appropriateness, just what the social media companies call it. They've all set it at 13. Legally, according to the structure, it's pretty easy to get around those things because privacy law restricts social media platforms from actually really truly verifying someone's age. But the problem is once your kid hits the age of 13, they're going to experience for sure extreme social pressure to be on social media and feel left out. So you got to start teaching your kids these discernment skills before they're 13, right? Before they get to a point where there's a lot of social pressure. And then lastly, equip yourself to live the life in Christ, go to church, go to confession, receive the Eucharist, be with God, have your kids be with God. And within them, they will just have the natural godly response to harmful content and interactions online. Okay, change gears a little bit. This is Father Jason told me this one time, and it just has always stuck with me, because we tend to turn when we have a question, we turn to the internet, we just ask it a question. Like I've been asking AI like Orthodox questions, like really specific Orthodox questions to see what it says. And I have to correct it a lot. And it literally, when I correct AI, it'll be like, oh, I apologize, I missed that. And I'm like, yes, I'm making AI more Orthodox bit by bit. But anyways, Father Jason once just said to me, there's a lot of non-Orthodox, Orthodox stuff on the internet. We have to be discerning. Just because it's on the internet and it has the word Orthodox on it, doesn't mean it's actually Orthodox. Anybody can use that title on the internet. This internet is chaos. Okay, here's the big gear shift. We're gonna get really practical and really direct now. I'm gonna touch on one thing that I think is interesting, and then we're gonna briefly review virtually every popular social media platform that exists with the goal of helping you understand each platform's purpose and hopefully then how to better parent around them. This will be a lot of information. It's kind of similar for a lot of these platforms, but there are some distinctions that I think are important for you to know as a parent, and your ears will probably just like prick up when you hear a social media and their kids are on a lot and you can ignore the rest of them. So what do these social media platforms, the 5 that you see here, you may not recognize one in the lower right, we won't talk about that quite right away. These 5 have something in common that I believe is an interesting and useful distinction. It's not an obvious and clear distinction, but it is interesting and useful. These social media platforms are not really social. YouTube, Pinterest, Reddit, TikTok, and Twitch.tv. They were never created to be a truly social media platform. There is not even a smidgen of them pretending to be about connecting people who know each other. These platforms from day one were built for entertainment, period. So they're in a different league from the other social media platforms. These social media platforms here are not relational. They're not designed to be relational. These for Twitter, maybe a bit less, but Snapchat, Instagram, and Facebook. These actually, at least at one time, and still have functionality, core functionality in their platforms designed to help people connect with each other, and especially also connect with people that they already know and stay in touch with people they already know, rather than connecting with the randos. Twitter's kind of taken off, but at one point you kind of like followed some famous people you knew and like would also follow the people that you know, and you would read their tweets. So they're designed to facilitate a connection between real humans, essentially. That's a distinction, right? Like these platforms, Twitter, we'll talk about that later. It's kind of its own category. Snapchat, Facebook, and Instagram are a bit less dangerous in terms of entertainment. They can be more dangerous in terms of harmful interactions. All right, let's go through these one by one. YouTube. I conducted a survey, which many of you took. Thank you very much. That helped me form the core of what I'm going to be addressing in this presentation, and that I'll address in a few more that will be coming up. Stay tuned for those. Orthodox parents identify YouTube by far as the biggest issue for the family out of all the social media platforms. I never would have guessed it. I like YouTube a lot, but I never would have guessed it. Like what kids in Orthodox families are struggling with the most today is YouTube. Fascinating. It's not really a social media. There are little social elements of it, but it's primarily just entertainment, right? Just kind of like Netflix, but it's user-generated content. You don't go to YouTube to connect with people, ever. It's not the purpose of it. YouTube is a Google product, so you can use Google Family Link to control the content that your children can access, which I think is important. It's one of the few that has like a full suite of parental controls that you can use in tandem with all of your Google controls. So there's some economies of scale there. Ultimately, YouTube is just like television. There is explicit content of many forms. You know, they don't allow like full R and beyond rated stuff, but it's hard PG-13 rated stuff all over the place. And then language, they allow like lots of bad language. So like probably almost impossible to keep your kids away from harmful content on YouTube unless you have the parental control set up, because it's all over the place in there. And then the last thing is that YouTube, I had a fascinating interaction one time where if there's a live streaming video on YouTube, which are very common, a live streaming video on YouTube, they allow live chatting along with that live stream. It's one of the only, it's the only place on YouTube that I know about. You can interact with other people in a context other than, you know, just like comment, which is much slower. So that live chat is a dangerous place. I went into like a, you know, I don't know, it was like lo-fi study beats or something while I was working one day. And it was like being on the streets of Las Vegas, man. There were people swearing in there. There were people posting bad, like links that are obviously bad, you know, like so obviously bad computer virus stuff or like pornography stuff, like, you know, don't. So anyways, my point, your kids could literally go on YouTube and be like, let me listen to some music, and then just be bombarded with like people saying, hey, click this link, people saying, hey, how old are you? You know, weird stuff like that. So YouTube can get dangerous because it does have live chatting, and you live chat with anybody who's watching the video. That one's tricky. TikTok pretty exists, interesting. It's newer. It exists and is successful because they mastered mobile short form video content. Their recommendation engine is like 10x more powerful than YouTube's. So they're going to be constantly feeding you content based on every little action you take on the platform. It's super quick to learn your preferences, and it quickly feeds you according to those preferences. It keeps you hooked. Super addictive, not truly social media. This is fundamentally not about connecting with people. It's designed to fill the in-between moments in your life with mobile video entertainment. So it's designed for me to be like, oh, I'm just waiting for my webinar to start. Let's go on TikTok and scroll a bit. The little micro moments. TikTok's designed to fill it. They have parental control. It's called family pairing. So you can hook your child's account up to yours and then control it. But at the end of the day, it's literally just like complete and utter time waste. Frankly, it's fun. That's it. Reddit. Reddit is, I don't know if you've spent much time on Reddit, but it's pretty hard to spend much time on there, not understand it for what it truly is. It is the wild west of the internet. If you're in the mood to experience the anarchy of unbridled democracy, people just vote stuff up or vote stuff down, and that's the entire platform. Go to Reddit and experience some madness. It is full of unashamed, ungated, explicit content. They don't care. They're like basically agnostic to like parental controls. Like they're just, explicit content is just on Reddit all over the place. I actually recommend like pretty much most people don't use Reddit. I think it's pretty damaging in general. But definitely, I do not believe Reddit is a place that any kid should be for any reason. And when I say kid, I mean like, man, I don't know, you gotta be pretty old before you can handle Reddit as a platform. You're gonna get argued with, you're gonna get beaten up on Reddit verbally. It's what people do on there. They go on there to disagree. So yeah, Reddit, dangerous. My advice, steer clear. Don't let your kids even go on there. It's not worth it. Next, Pinterest. I don't know, maybe it's too cheeky. I don't think your kids care about Pinterest. Maybe they do. Pinterest comes across as very innocent. It's just, you just basically collect images according to things you're interested in, create boards of like ideas. It's good for planning, home, do it yourself projects at home, but your kids don't care about that anyways. Maybe your kids want to use it for fashion or something. But most kids don't care about Pinterest, frankly. There is borderline sexual content on Pinterest. I looked it up. I was like, does Pinterest have any explicit content? Because I didn't know. I don't use Pinterest. And they're like, yeah, you can find plenty of, it's not pornography, but it's just this side of that stuff on Pinterest. So Pinterest isn't safe either, believe it or not. You don't even know what this is. It's probably because you don't know enough about video games. There is literally a social media called twitch.tv that exists for people to live stream video games through it. And it's not as big as YouTube, but it's a huge company. Like I think Microsoft bought them a little while ago. It's a giant deal. People spend loads of time with twitch.tv on the background. Literally, it's just people live streaming video. It can be video games, but it's also really popular for people to live stream them playing music or just talking. It's actually kind of similar to this webinar, but it's live stream where people are chatting and somebody's just talking, video game or whatever. Yeah, it started out as gaming, now it's everything. If your kids play video games, there's a good chance they're going to end up on twitch.tv watching videos. It's kind of inevitable. It's an entertainment platform. Every video has live chat, so you can experience all the same weird things I was talking about on YouTube live chat, where there's goofy people in there. You're going to be chatting with people you've never met, and lots of language, lots of swearing, lots of violence that you can view. It's video game violence primarily. Twitch, not a super safe place for kids, but as long as they're not watching channels that have language or violence, they could be safe on there. But once again, you'd have to keep a pretty close eye on the content they're consuming. Now we get into like the platforms that are actually about connection, or at least were at some point. Facebook, you actually connect with people you know. What an interesting concept, because all the other platforms we talk about, you don't do that on there. A lot of there's this concept where people are like, oh, Facebook's old, it's only the boomers on there. I don't know. My 12-year-old brother has a Facebook profile. He doesn't have many friends. He doesn't go on there, but he's got it. He's 12. I don't know why he's got it, but like Facebook is still super dominant. It's a company that has a lot of money. Your kids are going to be on there probably at least a little bit. There is lots of good Orthodox content on Facebook. It's actually one of the social medias that has the most good Orthodox content. So it can be helpful, frankly, that way. Most people, I think, still go to Facebook for entertainment. I use Facebook for one thing. I buy and sell used board games because I love playing board games with my wife. That's literally the only reason I use Facebook. And I still find myself sometimes when I'm going in there to like try to sell a board game to somebody in my community, I'll find myself just like scrolling. And I'm like, what am I doing? I don't care about this stuff. So it gets me, even though I don't care. Facebook, a lot of platforms, actually, Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat introduced this concept of stories recently. Did you guys notice that a couple of years ago, stories became a thing, little circles at the top of the app where you basically upload a little video or a post that like expires. They put those on the top for a reason, because guess what? It makes you spend way more time on the platform. So I don't think there's really ever helpful content in a story. I think it's pretty much just another way for somebody to share something that isn't really share worthy. You can set up settings on Facebook that can protect your kids better, encourage you to sit down with your kids and just go into their privacy and parental control and content settings with them. And talk to them about like, hey, what do you think we should set this one at? Hey, what do you think we should set that one at? Then be friends with your kid on Facebook so you can keep track of them a little bit. Instagram, I believe, is it's actually one of the more pure social media that exists. Like Facebook, Instagram, and Snapchat are kind of like the three where you really can connect with people. A lot of kids are on Instagram and they are following their friends on there, which is good. There's a social element to it. You're also going to follow a lot of other people, celebrities, brands, whatever it might be. But 5 years ago, Facebook bought Instagram, and then Instagram started pushing videos, started pushing ads. I had a fascinating conversation with Father Luke, the deacon, the other day, and he was showing me his Instagram. He's like, Cooper, I follow 6 accounts on Instagram. Here they are. Orthodox one, this other Orthodox one, this other Orthodox one. They're all Orthodox content creators. Look at what happens when I scroll. We're scrolling. And only 2 out of 3 posts are from the 6 accounts he follows. So 33% of the content that he sees on Instagram has nothing to do with what he's told Instagram he wants. It's like selling him shoes, it's telling him about soccer. He's just getting fed garbage on Instagram, despite having essentially complete control over who he follows. So you can't control it. You're going to get fed information. You're on social media. You can buy things through social media now. Instagram has videos, they have stories just the same way. It's super commercialized. The tricky thing about Instagram is that, like, in order to post, you have to have a picture or a video. So what's the structure and foundation of Instagram? It is intrinsically a vainglorious platform. It essentially exists for you to show off the way something looks. That's its function. So it's terrible for comparisons. Terrible. I mean, they've done the studies on like teenage girls and how Instagram affects their psyche. It's terrible. But just remember, like, Instagram exists for people to show off, right? That's its core functionality. So if you want to go on Instagram, you're just basically going on there to look at people showing off. Stories, just a time waster, just ways for you to spend more time looking at people sharing stuff that they don't need to share, that the platform is basically just like getting you addicted to getting content on there, getting feedback from that content, and consuming other people's content. On Instagram, I recommend every once in a while audit their friends list, just scroll through it. If you follow them, you can see who their followers are too. Just see what's in your kids' news feed too. Follow your kids, see what kind of stuff they're posting. You'll get a lot of insight into their life. Presbyterian Krista says, I think Facebook is way out for teenagers these days. Totally true. Totally true. But it doesn't change the fact that Facebook is like still double the revenue of the next biggest social media platform. And I wouldn't be surprised if Facebook continues to innovate in new ways to get into people's lives. So they might grow into it when they're older. I don't know, but I don't think Facebook's going anywhere. Also, they buy up all the other social medias like Instagram and WhatsApp. So they're feeding the data between all those platforms. So yeah, good point. Facebook is out. Twitter, I have a lot of opinions about Twitter, you guys. I think Twitter is a place where you can go and share your ideas in the most ineffective way. The core structure of Twitter says that you have a voice, you should use it to speak your thoughts, and other people should listen to your thoughts and they should respond to you, no matter what. It's kind of like Reddit, but they decided to use Reddit to make a bunch of money instead of just having it be the Wild West. And it focuses on people. Reddit is all about topics. Twitter is mostly about people. Most people, in my experience on Twitter, they're either there for entertainment or they've convinced themselves that like it's somehow useful for them to be on Twitter or beneficial because they're like following what other people are tweeting. Because you can get really up-to-date news on Twitter if you don't care about the source of that news or its quality. It's effective for that, that's for sure. Twitter, loads of explicit content. It is not for kids. If your kids are on there, follow them, audit their news feed, audit their who they're following on Twitter. But I think Twitter is a deep dark hole and is dangerous. Twitter and Reddit, not good, dangerous places. Okay, we're getting close to the end here. Thank you guys. Snapchat, I think Snapchat's actually pretty interesting. They've started to introduce, like entertainment videos, where they're just pushing you some reels, some videos. I can't remember the name of like the video concept that they added a few years ago. They have stories too, which is a time waster. But like at the end of the day, Snapchat it's a chat app. You go on Snapchat, send fun messages and cute video messages to your friends with like goofy, filters and make yourself look like a dog and stuff like that. I think Snapchat actually, like out of all these, like is potentially the most fun and safe way for kids to communicate with each other, because Snapchat is kind of actually still, there's an entertainment concept, but it's still functionally about like having fun chatting with your friends, which is cool. So maybe Snapchat is the salvation of social media after all. But you still should be watching who your kids are connecting to on there and what kind of stuff they're getting in their feeds. Okay, moving on, let's talk about like the whole use of social media. This is our last concept that we're gonna hit on. So, I mean, we always say, oh, we can conquer it, but like, can't we use social media for good? Like we want to use everything in our lives for good. Couldn't we hide in the shadows on Twitter, like the Batman of Twitter, and shine our bright light of love, inject ourselves into arguments and hate, and like encourage understanding and love? See me smiling. We could do that. And I would love to see you do it. But you're so heavily swimming against the stream when you're trying to use social media for good, because it's like using a hammer as a saw. It's not made to do that. It's made to pound nails. It's made for entertainment. It's not made for you to connect. It's not made for you to love God through social media. So you have to be really creative and really diligent. They actually will not make money off of you. Like I said, Father Luke is getting 1 out of 3 Instagram posts that are trying to sell him something or take his attention over to something else. It's not God. So it's really, really hard. Goal of our Christian lives is theosis, to become like God. Point of social media is entertainment, which is not a way that we become like God. It is structurally created to addict you to entertainment, to hold your attention. So what's a solution then if social media is so dangerous? Let's just stay off of it. A strict diet is the best one for social media, but that is not the reality. We are already all swimming against the stream, and so are your kids. At least when they turn 13, they're going to have so much social pressure on social media. They're probably going on there. And even if they don't go on when they're 13, they'll be on it by the time they're 20 for sure. So here's some strategies that you can use. These are like practical things overall to help you use social media and your technology for good and to actually help you get closer to God. Of course, follow Orthodox content. It's hard to find. Remember Father Jason's words. Not all Orthodox content online is Orthodox. A lot of it is actually not Orthodox, but it says it's Orthodox, so be careful. Search the word Orthodox, Orthodox Christian, in social media platforms. You can search for hashtags. You'll find lots of good resources and inspiration, and participate in that content. Consume it, post it, share it, proliferate it to your communities. And that helps the algorithms recognize that content's good and show it to more people. It can be a source of good for God on social media by engaging with Orthodox content. I think that it's genius that the word is notification, because I believe that no one needs push notifications for social media, period, ever. I think try it, take the challenge, do a crazy experiment, shut off all of your social media notifications, and you'll experience true freedom. True freedom. Your kids should do this too. It'll make them happier, help them focus better. No, say no to notifications from social media, turn them all off. Define with your kids what are meaningful connections. Give them examples. Do you really want to be, do you really want to be followed on Instagram by that weird dude from your middle school that you don't even like? Do you really want to be Snapchat friends with that kid that was mean to you one time? Encourage your kids to use social media to connect with their best friends and family via social media. Might seem okay. It might be hard to deny friend requests. Like, that's what kids do. Like, they're just going to friend request everybody because it makes them feel better. You got to make your kids think it's kind of cool to deny friend requests. Sounds mean. But you have to help them think that's okay. And it's even maybe cool or better to deny a request because they're going to get them from everybody. I think we need a call. We need to go back to the actual original purpose of social media and use it only to connect with the people that we have meaningful relationships with. Social media shouldn't be for entertainment. It shouldn't be for news. It shouldn't be for shopping. It should be for us to connect, use a media to be social with the people in our lives that we want to intentionally be closer to. What we end up doing on social media is just sitting in the bathroom, doom scrolling, just scrolling through there before your legs are falling asleep. I don't think anybody should ever be on social media in bed. Like, there's just no reason to be on social media in bed. Don't let yourself do that unless you're intentionally connecting with someone, but in that case, go to sleep. Use social media as a communication tool to enhance your relationships. And then last but not least, social media fasting. If it's a problem, if it's a challenge in your house, when you fast for the church, Wednesday, Friday, and the 4 major fasting periods of the year, fast from social media. Start doing it. Better yet, fast from entertainment. Don't do social media. Don't do YouTube. Don't do Netflix. Fast from technology, even if it's a problem. And you'll start to realize your relationship with social media. If you can't fast from something, it's either because you are addicted to it or because it's oxygen and you will die without it. So the odds are you're probably actually addicted to it, and that's why it's so hard to fast from. Quick recap. What have we learned? Then we're going to go open it up for any questions or comments for the final few minutes. Social media, think of it like alcohol. It can be good. It can be helpful. Its original purpose and intention is good, but highly addictive and can destroy relationships because you can be dependent on it. Social media, mostly it's used as entertainment. It's not bringing us closer to God. It's not about connection. That's a trick. It's not about connection. It's about entertainment. It's about helping you waste your time. At the end of the day, for your children, I believe it comes down to their discernment. Pray with them. Encourage them to go to confession. Encourage them to know what to do when they see something that makes them uncomfortable. Turn off notifications from all social media. I think that's just advice to everyone on earth. Get on the same apps as your kids. Have the experience they're having on there. Connect with them so that you know what it's really like, so you know what they're going through. And then lastly, fast from social media. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all. I'm going to turn off the recording here.